You'll need this word. Hello and welcome to the GhostÉire Channel. My name's Anthony Kerrigan, and tonight we are joined by Jonathan Downs from CFZ, the Centre for Fortean Zoology. John will probably correct me there. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Owlman of Mawnan Smith, also Chupacabra, and finally at the end we're going to be talking about UFOs. Tonight, folks, we had a poll. We also had a poll on the Loch Ness Monster, where we asked you, do you accept the Loch Ness Monster appears at Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands? And we were revealing the results in about another 20 minutes or so, half an hour. Also, folks, we have a quiz during the show where you can participate. You have to watch the show. I'll give you a word, and then if you're the first one to type in that word, you're in with a chance to go into our Halloween mega draw and mini draw. Also, if you'd like to contact us, you can go to our website, www.ghostére.net, fill in the blanks. If you have a private message, just put in brackets private message. Also, you can, if you want to see future shows or past shows, you go onto our website, our homepage, and press the red button, the GhostÉire Channel, and you'll see what's up in the future and what's happened in the past. So, hi, John. How are you keeping?
It's nice to see you, mate. Good to be here. Thank you.
Oh, and it's a pleasure to have you on there, John. There, I'm just going to go for a few shout-outs there. Kathy Houston says, hello, Anthony. Hello, Anthony. Hi, Kathy. How are you doing? Kathy from Soul to Soul Paranormal. Jenny says, good evening from Rams Island. Jenny from Echo Paranormal Researchers on Rams Island. She's on an island tonight there, John. So I don't know what, there could be mysterious creatures on the island tonight, apart from I know Gary's over there from GhostÉire Island. So hi, Gary, and hi, Jenny. How you doing?
Where's Rams Island?
Rams Island is in North Antrim there. It's just off the northern coast of Antrim there. So it's just on the top bit of the island. Mary Nolan from Back in Time Paranormal Researcher says, hi guys, great to see you from Back in Time Paranormal Investigators. So, sorry, Mary from Back in Time. And Mary Dargan. Hey, I'm Mary. Good evening from Kilkenny. Mary's joining our team at GhostÉire. Hi, Mary. How you doing? Love to you all in Kilkenny as well. We'll see you soon as well. And Jenny says it's in Loch Near. There, John. Okay, so it's I think it's in the, yeah, I'm not too sure. It's right at the top. I'm right at the bottom of Ireland, so I know it's in County Antrim anyway there. But I'll be seeing you soon there, Jenny. So first of all, there, John, I was talking about the CFZ. Can you tell us? Well, I just want to shout out there one more, and then Irene says hi all. She's from Alaska. She's from California. So Irene was recently in Alaska there. Hi, Irene. Love to you there. So, John, can you tell us more about the CFZ Centre for Fortean Zoology and how they were founded?
Well, I founded it nearly 30 years ago. It's 1992, which means we're 30 years old next April.
Mm.
And basically, I got made redundant from my last proper job back in 1990. And I decided I was going to spend the rest of my life doing something I actually wanted to do.
Okay.
And I soon discovered that unless I could say that I was affiliated to this organization or that organization or this seat of learning or that seat of learning, no one would take me seriously. So simply, I made it up. And for several years, the Centre for Fortean Zoology was me, my ex-wife Alison, and the bloke called Dave. And that was just the three of us for years.
Okay.
And then we started publishing a magazine. And I went along to the first ever Fortean Times convention back in 1994.
Okay.
And I expect you guys being in Ireland, you've probably heard of Tony Shields.
Teddy
The
Shields.
Wizard of the Western World, the painter, surrealist,
Oh.
monster hunter, and all sorts of other things.
The name doesn't ring a bell at the moment there, but go ahead,
Famous, if you think of the famous pictures of naked witches on the shores of various Irish lochs with a man with about as much hair as me and a big tall hat and a magic wand,
Right.
brandishing it in the air, that was him.
Oh, cool.
And everybody, those pictures have turned up everywhere. And anyway, I went along to this Fortean convention, and I had 200 copies of this magazine with me that I was going to charge £1.50 each for.
Okay.
Much to my amazement, after I'd been there for about an hour and a half, I'd sold the whole bloody lot. And so I went into the bar, and there at the bar was the first time I met him, Tony Shields, and he was there banging a baran and singing revel songs, and he was pissed as a newt, to use the technical term. And he and I got on fine. I bought him drinks, he bought me drinks, and then along came a man from the Guardian, one of the most respectable of British newspapers, who came up and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, you're obviously very important Forteans. Can you give me an interview?"
Cool.
And Tony Shields said, "And please forgive me, I'll try and do his accent, but I can't do a half-drunk Kerry accent very well. Yes, boy, I am the wizard of the fucking world, and this Saxon gobshite sitting next to me, he's the world's most famous cryptozoologist." And believe it or not, they printed that in the
Oh my
Guardian
God.
the week after. And so, totally because of a massively drunk Irishman, my career started.
Oh, excellent. That's amazing. That's a great story there. Mary Kate Barry from Cork says, "Hi, Mary Kate." Oh, good evening. She's in Cork. Hi, Mary Kate. As well, Jonathan, there, can you tell us that Karina as well? And she was a big part of CFZ, wasn't she? Was she?
Yes, my first wife and I divorced 25 years ago. And 16 years ago, I met Karina, and we got married, and we had 15 very happy years married. And she died of cancer last summer, which was devastating. But I wouldn't be where I am now because she took the CFZ, who were a bunch of, to use again Tony Shields' words, drunken drunken Saxon gobshites, I think is the word that he used. We were a bunch of very eccentric wild men almost, and she civilized it, and she made the CFZ what it is today. She took it from being something remarkably bizarre and made it slightly more civilized. And that's something for which I will always, always be grateful. But the biggest thing I'll always be grateful for is the years we had together. And when she died last year, she died holding mine and her two daughters' hands. So
I know it was probably it was a tough time last year.
it was a horrible one. Excuse me for a second,
No
Archie.
worries. Archie, there's Archie there. Archie, the little pooch. And Lilibeth, we'll come to Prince Harry in a minute. Because you probably tell us there they're going to have a child next year. And they've
Well, if they have a child next year, they've already named their dog. Their first one after my dog, their second one after my cat. It's only going to be named after my other cat, Peanut. So, ladies and gentlemen, be prepared for the world to greet the Right Honourable Peanut.
It's so funny, John. Well, what we're going to say that is, behind every man, myself, there's always a lady there that's always, keeps us above board and directs us in the right way. So, with the next question, the topic we're going to start off with is the Owlman of Mawnan Smith. Now,
by the way, if you hear that weird noise, it is my idiotic dog scratching himself against the bottom of the bed, and he won't come up here. Archibald, here.
Probably my voice there. Josephine.
Really how well behaved he is.
Josephine.
And how well trained he is.
Josephine Lanigan Bailey says, "Hello, everyone from Kilkenny." Hi, Josephine. How you doing? How you doing? Archie says hello as well. So we're going to talk about the Owlman of Mawnan Smith.
Well, Kilkenny is a very important place in cryptozoological history.
All right.
It's why there are no wildcats in Ireland, because they all fought a battle and killed each other in Kilkenny, allegedly, according to the myth.
Okay, yeah, I did. Yeah, I know. I suppose I don't know if that has anything to do, witch trials as well. Like they had the witch trials over. It was one of the earliest witch trials in the 1300s. The Owlman of Mawnan Smith. Can you tell us there, John? What can you tell us who the Owlman is? What are people seeing?
Okay, once again, the story is very Archibald. Stop it. Once again, the story is very inextricably linked with Tony Shields, because at the time he was living in Cornwall, and I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the hot summer of 1976, but it was so hot and so dry, it was much worse than the mini heat wave we've had in England this last few days. And I hope you guys can't hear that stupid dog of mine too much.
If he starts attacking someone, it's good to have it live on the show anyway. But was it reputed to be two girls? Is it seen?
Yeah. What happened? The story starts off on Good Friday, and there was a family who'd come down, a family called the Mellings, who'd come down from this damn stupid dog, Archibald.
There we go.
They'd come down on holiday in Cornwall, and they went to have a picnic lunch, and they parked up in the big car park at Mawnan Old Church. And while Mr. and Mrs. Melling were sorting out their picnic lunch, the two girls went went to play in the woods and the churchyard. And suddenly they came screaming, running out of the churchyard, saying that they'd seen a horrid, nasty, feathered bird man flying above the church tower. And they were so terrified that this was the end of any sort of picnic lunch for today. I don't know what they did next, but from what I can gather, Mr. and Mrs. Melling spent most of the rest of the day trying to calm them down. And the next day, they went to what they thought was going to be a nice, innocuous holiday activity, and they went to a steam fair at Penryn. And at the steam fair, amongst other sideshows, there was Tony Shields doing a magic act, and he also had a Punch and Judy show.
Right.
And somebody got talking to Mr. Melling and told him that if they wanted to know about any of the weird stuff that happened in Cornwall, the person to talk to would be Tony Shields. So Don Melling got completely the wrong idea, the wrong end of the stick, and went rushing up to Tony Shields and said, "What's this about you frightening my daughters?" And Tony obviously didn't know what he was talking about. He calmed Mr. Melling down, and Mr. Melling told him the story. Tony wanted to interview the two girls, but the two girls were too frightened, and neither of their parents wanted this to happen. But he did get the two girls to draw a picture of what they'd seen, which is one of the famous images of the Owlman. Now, a few months later, all the way through 1976, this happened. At the beginning of July, there were two girls, older girls this time, were camping in the woods when they saw the Owlman as well. And they again went and told their story to Tony Shields, who separated them, got them to draw a picture, each to draw a picture, and he got a brief description from them. Now, one of these girls was later to contact me, and I interviewed her many, many years later. And even though by the time I interviewed her, which was about 20 years ago, so that's to my sons, she was 14 in 1976, 24, 86, 34, 96. She would have been in early middle age by the time I spoke to her. She was still terrified by what she'd seen and the effects of what had happened to her, what she and her friend had seen, stayed with her for the rest of her life. Now, she is only a few years younger than me, so she would be pushing 60 now. I'm 62, so Archibald, come over and say hello to everybody.
Hi Archie, how you doing? So hi Archie there. Oh, I see him there. The next in line for the throat. I was going to say that. So these sightings have happened. I suppose they've happened like they occur quite together, and then there's a time when nobody sees the Owlman there. I suppose there was a story about a couple of years ago that people there were sightings of them as well. I think it was I suppose a video as well there. But
the video is if it's the one I think it is an amusing and quite clever hoax.
Okay, yeah.
But yes, there have been sightings up until very recently. The most recent sighting I know of was 2012. But that doesn't mean that there haven't been any more. It just means that for the last 10 years, I've been basically looking after my wife and my mother-in-law. Now they've both died, I'm back in the saddle again.
But these sightings, are they due to being an over imaginative mind? Or, as you said, it's like girls. Is it attracted to girls?
I think it's the other way around. I think over the years, many people have written about how poltergeist activity does seem to be connected with pubescent girls and emotionally disturbed girls. Well, all the Owlman sightings that I have managed to dig up, with one exception, have all been by women, and they've by all been either by young women or women who do have mental or physical health problems.
Okay.
And I think that the Owlman is like a sort of three-dimensional poltergeist, a sort of poltergeist which for a while does get some sort of objective reality of its own.
Mm.
So it's not that the Owlman's attracted by girls. The girls, I think, create the Owlman from something that's already there in the ether.
Yeah, and like another consciousness there that they can keep contact with or
I don't even
communicate
know
with.
if it's as I don't even know if
Mm.
it's as complicated as that.
Yeah.
But there are all sorts of things throughout the years which have involved birdmen
Mm.
in that part of Cornwall. So there's an awful lot of dreams, memories, folklore, history,
Mm. And I suppose when it's
semi-history. There's an awful lot of stuff that's happened over the years.
mm.
For example, back in round about the time of the birth of Christ, there were Phoenician tin traders who
Okay.
used to come to southern Cornwall to buy tin from the local miners. And there is some evidence that there was a small um, Phoenician settlement, or at least a part-time settlement there
Right.
on the Helford River. And one of the Phoenician great gods was a giant owl, or a giant owl to whom children, particularly little girls, were sacrificed.
All
So
right.
make of that what you will.
Yeah.
When I learnt that, that freaked the hell out of me.
Mm.
But
So it's like a type of anthropomorphism, like as in
I
no,
don't know. I
yeah,
mean, there's that. There's back in the 1930s, the surrealist painters Max Ernst and Leonora Carrington were
mm.
doing some sort of a weird mixture between art installation and ritual
Mm.
to invoke Max Ernst's feathered birdman Lop Lop, who's half man, half bird. That's
Mm.
a creation of his from his um, graphic novel, I suppose you'd call it, in Bante.
Mm.
And some people, including Tony Shields, believe that when they did their magical invocations, and there are photographs of these invocations that you can
Okay.
find. There is, I believe, there is a little pamphlet about a local surrealist called Beakus Penrose, and it includes photographs of these rituals. And that's apparently easy enough to buy in the local gift shops. And it's just I've never remembered to get one when I've been down there.
Mm.
Tony Shields believes that when they did their magical invocations in the 30s, they
Mm.
left something behind, some sort of impression on the ether.
Mm.
I I don't know what it is, but I tell you what,
Mm.
if I was staying in southern Cornwall, especially in the middle of summer, I wouldn't let my little granddaughter go into those woods alone.
Oh, man. That's an interesting thought. As you said, like rituals, magic. There, I suppose, like with the paranormal stuff, the ghost hunting, you do get that like essence, that essence left behind. And you do feel like people would, like psychics would get it. Mediums there, like even if it's a place of just evoking or invocations, they're trying to create something there. People do get. There's a sense of energy left behind, as you said, in the ethos there. Just a few more shouts out, and I've got a few more questions there for you there, John. Um, uh, Josephine says, hi, Mary, or everyone from Kilkenny. How you doing? Bridget Burt from Seekers of the Afterlife. Hi, Bridget. How you doing? TJ Mill says, hi, all. Hi, TJ. Archie says hello as well. Hey! And Mary says, from Back in Time, investigator says, attracted to their vulnerability. That's to do with the girls, the Owlman. That's what Mary says there.
I think you're right, Mary. It is attracted to it is partly because of the vulnerability, but it's also, I think, partly because of the biochemical changes which happen to girls at puberty. And that, I mean, once upon a time, I had a friend of mine, his daughter was staying with me in my house in Exeter. And this girl was throwing a tantrum for some reason. And suddenly, a large rock, which had been on my bookshelf, went flying across the room. And then I heard a funny noise, and it was a large green frog hopping across the floor. So this stuff happens,
yeah,
and
it's an accounts of like poltergeist activity. I think was it the gongoose? Is it? Sorry, no, wait, I've got the name of the animal wrong.
Jeff the talking mongoose.
Mongoose, that's the word. The mongoose, yeah, that's yeah. You see, animals and create. I suppose with Ireland here we have fairies as well, and I suppose a lot in the thought pattern is if a lot of people think about it or talk about it or fantasize about it, then as you said in folklore, there the Owlman going back to Venetian, back in bygone times, it would have created that energy around, and then a sort of a spur off then after doing rituals as well. Mary
Well,
said,
if you can imagine the amount of psychic energy produced by human sacrifices, I mean, it beggars belief, and it's something I'd rather not think about, but it would produce an enormous amount of energy. And if that energy is still there, stored somehow in the ground, in the ether, in the trees, whatever, then emotionally vulnerable teenage girls can pick up on it.
True, yeah. And linking to the Owlman now, I think Mary Dargan from GhostÉire says, are there any definitive similarities between the Owlman and the Mothman that might suggest they're of the same or a similar species of cryptid? Would that be the same, like, I suppose, the Mothman in America?
Well, first of all, they're not cryptids, because cryptids are, I don't want to sound like I'm nitpicking here, but cryptids are animals. Cryptids are flesh and blood animals like you, me, and Archie. Animal creatures that can be defined in 3 dimensions and carbon-based life forms, whereas the Mothman and the Owlman are both they're very similar. They're also they're alike in many ways. They're also different in many other ways.
Yeah.
But both of them are something which I really don't like using the word paranormal, because I think this stuff is perfectly normal.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly normal. We just don't understand it yet.
Mm.
It's perfectly normal. It's ruled by laws of science that we just don't know yet, because our species is an incredibly arrogant one and thinks that it knows everything, and we don't. We don't know this. We haven't scratched the surface of what the universe has to hold. We haven't even scratched the surface of what southern Cornwall's got to hold.
True.
So I know this isn't a very good answer, Mary, but yes, they're similar in many ways. They're similar because they are both involved with trauma. And the biggest trauma being, of course, with the Mothman was the destruction of the bridge at Point Pleasant. But the differences are that all but one of the Cornish witnesses were young or youngish girls, with one exception being a 12-year-old who was there with his 13-year-old girlfriend. And if it wasn't the fact she was there, I bet you a pound for my next payday, she wouldn't have seen it. He wouldn't have seen it. It was just that he was sort of psychic collateral damage. He just happened to be there. And in America, the Point Pleasant ones, and also the more recent sightings of Mothman-like creatures around about Chicago and other parts of northern Illinois, they don't seem to be just seen by women. They're seen by all ages, both sexes, all sexes, and under all sorts of different circumstances.
It's interesting as well, like as you said, I suppose like it doesn't happen in just one area. I know, as you mentioned, the Mothman, it's a stretch of road as well as in that place that you mentioned before that people saw this Mothman there, and the Owlman is supposed linked to the. Is it just linked to that church? Is it?
Linked to the church and the woods next to the church and the path that goes through the woods down towards the sea.
Right. Okay. Irene says, I totally agree with Jonathan about what he said on our species. Yeah, true. We just don't know. Even scientists say they don't know, like black holes and all that. They just don't understand it. We just don't know what's around us at the moment. I don't think we'll ever know that. Have we got the capability? Mary says, thank you, Jonathan. So we got a quiz there, folks. So the quiz. So we want you to be the first person to type in this word. Jonathan's going to go in this quiz as well. So we're going to ask you one of 6 places. It's not a big quiz. It's just picking out one out of 6 places there to enter a draw. But we want the first person to type in the word. The word is monster, MONSTER. Be the first person to type that word, and you have a chance to go in our Halloween mega draw and mini draw. So if you'd be the first person to type the word in monster.
I'm afraid I can't because I have to scratch the dog's tummy.
No, that's no worries, Jonathan. You don't have to type in anything because you're here with me. I can just ask you that. I know we've had a few people say
MONSTER.
So we have Irene again. Hi, Irene. You were the first one. Yeah, you're correct there, and we'll put you. Just stay on. Keep on watching there, and we'll go into. We'll do it in the next segment of the show. So we did a poll, folks, and it was about the Loch Ness monster, and many of you voted. The voting closed at 8 o'clock, and I'm just going to show you the results here. I'm going to talk about. Actually, I've just found out that it was on the paranormal database just today. If people watch it, if they go over to the paranormal database, there was a sighting of the Loch Ness monster. I think that has happened just recently there. So here were the results. There was a scale from 1 to 5, and I asked you there on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being exists, 5 being are you kidding me? Do you think the Loch Ness monster appears at Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands? And here are the results. So the results are 27.3% of you said think that it does exist, going down to about 18.2, which you're saying, are you kidding me? So the average, we looked it up there, was 3.0. The average came out as 3.0. So half of you is that kind of mix there. John, have you ever seen the Loch Ness Monster, or do you reckon it exists? Or these types of...
Well, first of all, it all depends. What do you mean by the Loch Ness Monster? Come on, guys, and what do you guys in the audience, what do you think of when someone says Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah, so if you have anybody there, like if you want to explain what you think the Loch Ness Monster is it
just a couple of words? Just
yeah,
what's the word that comes to mind when you think of the Loch Ness Monster?
it's like dinosaur. To me, it would probably come like dinosaur, a form of a lizard, kind of. No, I would just wait to see what people say there. Irene says smiley face. But it is another bit of the poll here. So this is the more of the result. So here we are. This is the other bit. So yeah, there you can see the difference there. So it's kind of mixed there, you know. But coming up was number 1 at the top there at 27.3, along with number 4, 27.3 as well. So yeah, but I don't know if people. You got people thinking now, John. There, you got people thinking there. So
it's a Saturday night. We can't just be mindless entertainment. We've got to make them work.
I know we've got to make them work, John. There, you know, it's terrible. There, you see, it's bank holiday over here. You know, it's. But I suppose whilst people are away, we'll come back to that. There, I'm just going to say we've got the next topic we're going to talk about is chupacabra. Is that how I pronounced it right there, John? Chupacabra. That's the one. I get mixed up there. Well, I don't get mixed up. My pronunciation's not that good there. But can you tell us what is they're known to be goat suckers there? Can you tell us but what they like, their size or
it's a very complicated question. It's a very, very complicated question because the original sightings were of something that were on the Canaveras Plateau in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And people started seeing something that looked a little bit like a sort of kangaroo with a small kangaroo with spikes going down its back.
Right.
And people were reporting seeing that at the same time as there were attacks on domestic livestock. And chupacabra means chupa is suck. If you look, if you look around, there were until at least only a few years ago anyway, there were some Spanish sweets you could buy called chupa chups, which means things you suck, wine gummy things.
Okay.
And cabra means goat. So it's that sucks the blood out of goats. And the name was coined by an acquaintance of mine called Ishmael Aguayo, who's head of the Canaveras Civil Defense.
Okay.
Now, that is straightforward fact. After that, it gets complicated because so many people then claim that chupacabra is a ancient Spanish demon, and the name goes back to prehistory. It doesn't. It goes back to 1996 when my mate Ishmael came up with it. And these sightings of these strange creatures do go back intermittently for quite a long way, but only in the Canaveras Plateau in Puerto Rico. But over the years, the name chupacabra spread and it became, first of all, in Mexico, it became used for something which is completely different.
Right.
And which were sort of weird vampiric attacks on livestock. I can tell you a story about that later, which will make you. I was going to say make your hair curl, but you haven't got.
I haven't got much hair.
Left to curl. But
well, cheers, John.
I'm coming. I'm the last one to talk about
You got more hair in
haircuts.
your
And I
beard
haven't
than
had
on
a
my head.
I haven't had a haircut since 19 years ago when my mother died. The last time I had a haircut was for a funeral.
But I
But
think,
no, I can tell you stories, which I'll tell you a story later, which is
okay.
particularly nasty, but quite interesting. But then, back in 2004,
Mhm.
a strange hairless blue dog
Mm.
was shot by a guy, by an American rancher of Irish descent called Devin McAnally.
Okay.
He shot this thing. He took Polaroids of it. He shot it because he thought it had been attacking his attacking his chickens. It
Yeah.
hadn't. It had actually been eating his mulberries. That's a different story. He took a picture of it, that he'd taken a Polaroid picture of it, down to the local corner store, which is about a mile and a half away. And the lady there, who was of Hispanic descent, said, "Hey, Devin, it looks like you have your very own chupacabra there."
Right.
Devin misunderstood it, told the papers that his friend said it was a chupacabra, and ever since then, the hairless blue dogs of Texas and other southern states of the United States have become called chupacabra when they're absolutely nothing of the sort.
Mm. So it's like a board. It's a board.
It's
Board.
a broad term which is
Yeah.
totally misused.
Mm.
But you can't get away with it that easily. Has anybody said what they think the Loch Ness Monster, what they consider when someone says the Loch Ness Monster to them? Anyone come
No,
up with the...
no one's come up with it yet. I think they're afraid.
Oh,
Oh,
shame.
come on, everyone. Come on there.
Well, I tell you what, you said dinosaur, and
Mm.
that's what an awful lot of people would believe. They would believe
Mm.
it's a dinosaur or a pliosaur or a plesiosaur, one of the long extinct
Prehistoric.
marine reptiles.
Mm.
Do I believe that there was a long extinct marine reptile living in Loch Ness? No, of course I don't. It's a ridiculous idea.
Mm.
For one thing, Loch Ness, in the last ice age, was frozen solid.
Okay.
For another thing, people say, "Oh yes, but it could have come up from the sea because the River Ness flows right from the sea right up to the lake." Well, it does, yes, but it's very shallow in
Mm.
quite a lot of its parts, and it flows right through the middle of Inverness, which is a very modern city.
Right.
Now, I don't know how many people who are watching this, listening to this, have been to Loch Ness.
Mm.
But I've been there. I've been there several times, and I've always avoided going at the height of tourist season
Mm.
because I don't like tourists. I don't like people,
You just like myself.
and also apparently
Mm.
Loch Ness is the area surrounding Loch Ness is full of absolutely horrible, bloodthirsty midges at that time of year. So
Mm.
when I've been there, it's been in the springtime or in the winter.
Yeah.
Now, I went there the first time I went there in the springtime. I drove around the whole of the what's the word? This bank of the lake.
Thanks. Yeah.
There's roads all the way,
Shores. Yeah.
and there are dozens of um, laybys, and even in late March, early April, every lay-by had 3 or 4 cars in with people with binoculars and telescopes and things. And I counted the number of cars of people there. And this was not, like I said, not in the holiday season.
Mm.
And I counted something like 230.
Oh my
I
God.
can't
Yeah.
remember the exact figure, but it was something like 230 cars. Each of the cars had at least 2 and anything up to 6 people in it.
Yeah.
In the summer, I assume there would be 100 times more,
Yeah.
because there'd be people on coach trips, there'd be people on whatever. Now, that would mean that even in the most inhospitable times of the year, there are several hundred people watching the shores, watching the surface of the lake.
Mm.
During the height of the holiday season, I expect it to be many thousands.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of holiday homes there, isn't there? I've seen on TV there. So it, you
And
know, yeah. Go ahead.
sorry,
Sorry. Go ahead, John.
there are sightings of the Loch Ness Monster,
Mm.
most of which are of blurry things that could be anything, but
Mm.
there are sightings of the Loch Ness Monster each year. I think last year there were 7, 8, I can't remember, something like that.
Right.
When you're thinking that there could be, during the year, there
Mm.
might be 20,000 people at any one, 20,000 people during the year scanning the surface of the water.
True. Yeah.
Why aren't there more sightings?
True.
And if it was a prehistoric reptile, despite the fact that the lake was frozen solid and all the prehistoric reptiles were wiped out when in the aftermath of the asteroid, of the meteor that hit the Gulf of Mexico during the KT extinction event. But forgetting those two, if it was a big aquatic reptile, it would have to come to the surface to breathe air.
That was good. That was in my mind there. Like it would have to, if it's classified as a reptile, then it would have to come up for air at some time. Then.
If it was a
Mm.
reptile or a mammal, it would have to come up to breathe air.
Mm.
If it was an amphibian, it would have to come up to breathe air. The only thing that is left, therefore, is that it's fish.
Fish. Yeah.
Now, there are several species of fish in Britain that can reach remarkably large sizes.
Mm.
But the two which we know, there are two which we know are found regularly in Loch Ness, and that's the European eel,
Mm.
and there are small numbers of pike.
Mm.
There are 2 other fish which there's the sturgeon, the European sturgeon, which may or may not come up the river and come into the lake. I think probably it would soon regret it, because sturgeon need very, very highly oxygenated, fresh, clean water. And Loch Ness is very muggy. It's full of lots and lots of peat
Okay. Yeah.
suspended in the water. It's really not good
Inhabitable.
good habitat for sturgeon. And the
Mm.
other thing is that in the 1870s there was a peculiar society called the Acclimatization Society, who travelled across the world, particularly to the far-flung parts of the British Empire, capturing new species of animal, bringing them back to Britain, releasing them so they'd thrive in the wild, so they could then catch and eat.
Right.
Complete nut jobs, wonderful bunch of eccentric nut jobs. And one of the things that they did introduce was the
Mm.
European catfish, the Wells catfish,
Mm.
which can grow up to 17, 18 feet in length. It is an enormous fish. We know that they were introduced into quite a few canals and ponds and waterways in England, and I suppose it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that somebody could have introduced them into Loch Ness, but it still seems a pretty bloody stupid idea to me. But it's something that people have said. Yes, it's a Wells catfish. Well, there's no evidence for that whatsoever, apart from the fact Wells catfish are really big.
Right.
But now the interesting thing about eels
Yeah.
is that considering, I'll tell you what, here's a little question for another question for you. Considering that eels have been of commercial importance to the human race for 8,000 years, do you know when we finally found out how their life cycle works?
Have we found out what the life cycle works?
Yes, it was in the middle of the Second World War, it was in the 1940s,
Jesus.
and that was by accident.
Hmm.
Because the European eel has a very strange, and we're still learning stuff about it now, but the European eel has a very strange life cycle. When it reaches sexual maturity, it swims down the rivers from wherever it swims down to the sea from where it spent its life,
Right.
swims down to the South Atlantic to the Sargasso Sea. And this always amuses me because it's right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, which always makes me
Wow.
laugh,
Yeah.
where they mate, they spawn, they die. And the babies, which are called leptocephali, which are about the size of my little fingernail, and they'll swim they'll swim up the Atlantic slowly,
Okay.
and by the time they get into European coastal waters, they are little silver eels called elvers.
Right.
About half of them stay in the sea, but the other half swim back up into fresh water, where the whole cycle goes on again. Now,
Right.
according to the people who keep the records for the British Angling Society, the largest properly attested eels are just over 4 foot.
Yeah. It's about, yeah.
I have discovered, it's been thought for years, that if for some reason an eel didn't reach sexual maturity, it might stay in fresh water and just carry on getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Hmm.
Now, I was in, of all places, Blackpool Tower Aquarium about, oh God, 12 years ago.
Right.
And I was there for something completely different. But I saw that in one tank in the corner, there were two absolutely enormous European eels.
Right.
Now, I was there doing something else, but I used my walking sticks. I hadn't got a measuring thing, but I hadn't got a tape measure or anything on me. But I used my walking stick, and they were over 5 foot in length, which
Right.
means in Blackpool Tower Aquarium, there are two bloody
10 foot.
enormous eels, which are bigger than eels should be.
Hmm.
And why were they so big? Because I spoke to a guy there, a very old man there, who'd been working there since he was a boy, and the eels had been there when he was a boy.
Hmm.
The reason they may have reached sexual maturity, but they couldn't swim down to the sea because they were stuck in a tank at the top of Blackpool Tower,
Hmm.
and so they just got bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that this is what happens in quite a lot of lakes, especially in Scotland and Ireland.
Hmm.
And at the risk of misquoting Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think once in every generation you
Yeah.
get
Go
you
ahead. Sorry.
get an eel that for some reason is sterile and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Because, for example, in Loch Ness, if you were to have a whole colony of 12, 15, 20 foot fish, There just isn't enough biomass there for them to eat.
Mm.
But there's enough biomass for our Buffy the Vampire Slayer once in every generation fish.
Mm.
And if you think that there are monster-haunted lakes all the way around the Northern Hemisphere, and they are all in places where either the European eel or the American eel or the Japanese eel, which are all three so closely related, they might as well be the same fish, is where they're all reported from. And I think that enormous eels, and by the way, by enormous, I tell you another little story. Back when I was 12 or 13, my mate David and I snuck out at night and went poaching. We went down to try and poach eels down in a river owned by a local by the local landowner, who shall remain nameless. I've apologised to him since, and he thought it was quite funny, particularly because the only eel we caught was 18 inches long, and it bit my finger. And I don't know if you can see.
Oh God, yeah.
See, I've still got the scar on my finger.
It's very
now.
sunny there, John. But yeah, so
And it hurt. It hurt like bloody hell. And that was 18 inches. If you can imagine an eel that's 12, 15 foot, you don't have to go into Jurassic Park to find a monster that's truly terrifying, because that scares the hell out of me. Also, people are not very good at estimating distances.
No.
Estimating lengths of things. So I think if somebody says they've seen a 20-foot monster, what they've actually seen is a 15-foot eel or a 12-foot eel, because those will still be absolutely enormous fish and totally terrifying.
I suppose it comes then with the added bonus then of bias, being like, it being in that area and thinking, oh my God, I've actually seen it and I'll photograph it. I know it's going to get publicity and all that, So if they do see it, that, people, mistake it there, like, well, they're going to go and try and give it as an explanation to being a monster. Mary says, you hear of these unusual sightings in countries with hot climates. Unusual in hot climates. I doubt we will see them in Ireland. We have the Banshee there, but I suppose, as you just mentioned, we're just talking about the Loch Ness monster there as well. There, that we see things in the lakes. It's just understanding what we see there. So going back to the chupacabra there, John, I'm just going to show a video there of a sighting now. I'm just going to go a bit more into the chupacabra there, and this is from, I think, Texas there, and it's with a sighting of the chupacabra there.
Woods of South Texas, you never know what might be lurking around the corner or in your tree.
And he saw this strange animal sitting up here eating corn.
In Ratcliffe, a small town in DeWitt County, residents are certain they found the mythical, despicable chupacabra. And this time, it's alive. Jackie Stock says her husband caught the creature Sunday night.
He called me to come and look, and I said, Bubba, that looks like a baby chupacabra.
With its hairless back, large claws, countless teeth, and ferocious growl, many would say this animal fits the bill.
I hunted coons, 20 years with dogs and all that. And I ain't never seen nothing look like that right there.
Parma says one of the big signs it's not a raccoon is its growl.
Coon don't make that noise, or a possum. What makes that noise? I guess chupacabra does. I don't know.
Here in DeWitt County, most people are convinced this is the elusive chupacabra. But what do wildlife experts have to say?
The animal in the cage, as best I can tell from the view, was some form of a small canine.
Brent Ortego, a biologist with Texas Parks and Wildlife, says a canine can include a coyote, dog, or even a fox. He says the animal most likely has mange, which has caused it to lose its hair. But as for a chupacabra, well, he thinks otherwise.
It's never been proven to be a unique species. It was always something out there that allegedly either caused harm or threaten to cause harm to people or their livestock.
Chupacabra or not, right now this little guy is staying at the Stock household, living off a diet of cat food and corn. At least until someone can find out what it really is.
We never seen anything like that on our place before.
In Ratcliffe, I'm Janelle Bluda, KAVU News.
So there we have the chupacabra there, John. Can you tell us there, have there been sightings of the chupacabra elsewhere apart from the Americas?
There have been claims, because there's animal mutilations take place all across the world, and there have been claims, particularly in the Hispanic countries, that the chupacabra has crossed the Atlantic. And most recently, there have been sightings of creatures in Russia that have been claimed to be the chupacabra. But the ones in Russia have been, or the ones that I have had any reliable accounts from, have all been either dogs or wild members of the dog family with psychoptic mange.
Mm. Yeah, like in Mexico, it's the hairless. Is it the hairless hound? Like it's like mange is one of the main features of it there. Or is it, as you said, it could be just a new species of dog there as well? Is there any, if like people been hurt when have confronted these types of animals? Did they keep themselves to themselves?
We're talking about the dog.
The sort of dog. I know it's a broad kind of term there, but have people, have anybody been injured from them or?
Not that I've heard. But there's something that's very interesting about these dogs, whatever the hell they are, is most of the males, if you look on the back of their haunches, on their buttocks, if dogs have buttocks, where there would be, you'll see weird pads of flesh, big pads of flesh, which are unlike anything else known. And these only appear to happen to the males, not to the females. They don't appear to be inflamed glands of any sort. One of these, two of these have been examined by a qualified doctor of veterinary science, Dr. Felix Canyon, and she said that they weren't glands and that they didn't appear to be muscle, which is very strange because most flesh is muscle.
Right.
But she said that she was certain they weren't glands, which is all very exciting and all very intriguing. It's something I've been interested in. Like I said, back in 2004, Archibald, come here and stop being stupid. Just because I'm talking about mystery dogs, you don't have to play up.
We might confront you there now, John. but 2004.
Yeah, back in 2004, the rancher Devin McAnally shot the first one, the first one that actually got widespread publicity, and I actually went. I was in Texas with my then girlfriend, shooting a pilot for a show for the Sci-Fi Channel that never got made. I'm quite glad it didn't get made because I think it would probably have turned out to be terrible. But they flew me and Susie over to America for a week and paid our expenses, which was all very nice. And I went to see Devin McAnally, and he was a very strange man. He was very defensive. And he asked me if I wanted to see the body. And I said, yeah. because I never thought I was actually going to see the body of the thing. And he brought out a big plastic bin bag, tipped it out into the back of his flatbed truck, and out tumbled 2 skulls and a load of bones, which
Right.
were obviously dog bones of some sort. Now, this is a cautionary tale to anybody who has any scientific specimen. Keep it clean, keep it separate, and don't let some idiot from the Disney Channel wearing fake antennae, calling himself Spaceman Bob or something, come along with a dog skeleton in order to compare them, and then shove the dog skeleton and the blue dog skeleton both back into the same bin bag. So we don't know which bones are which. The DNA from one will have contaminated the DNA from the other, and as a scientific specimen, it's completely and utterly useless. But these sightings continue to happen. I've been following them now for 17 years, 16, I can't add up, 17 years. I've been following these, and I'm about a third of the way writing a book about them.
Okay. I know, because you did.
Because one of the interesting things is that the specimens that I told you about that Dr. Phyllis Canyon secured, she did have them DNA tested, and they were DNA tested properly, and I've seen the results. She had them done by 10 different laboratories, all of which said that they are a simple hybrid between a coyote and a Mexican wolf.
Okay, yeah.
There's only one problem with that.
Right.
There aren't any Mexican wolves in the wild anymore, not for well over 1,000 miles, because in 1970 something, they caught all the rest of the Mexican wolves, took them into captivity to do a captive breeding program. There are some of them in Arizona, most of them in Arizona, a few of them in New Mexico. There are no Mexican wolves in Mexico, and certainly none in Texas. And when you look at the distribution patterns of the wolf, because there were 2 subspecies of wolf that used to live in Texas, and they're both extinct. So, where the Mexican wolf DNA came from, why there are still sightings of wolves in this area where they're meant to be extinct, how they got there, why they got there, and what they're doing there, and what relationship they have with these weird hairless blue dogs with the pads of flesh on their haunches, I don't know. But it's a fascinating detective story, and it's one I'm about a third of the way through writing the book on, and I'm still completely puzzled by a lot of it.
And what, like you did an expedition in 1998 and 2004 to Puerto Rico. Is that correct?
Yeah, those were both for the original chupacabra, the thing with the spines down its back, semi-bipedal thing, and both times I was with film crews. I was with British Channel 4 on the first occasion, and I was with Sci-Fi Channel, I think, on the second. It was either Sci-Fi or Discovery, I can't remember, on the second one. And on both occasions, I interviewed eyewitnesses, and I saw, on the first one, I saw the remains of creatures that had allegedly been killed by the chupacabra. And I carried out a very, very rough necropsy. Again, you talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm probably the only person you're ever going to meet who's done an autopsy or a necropsy, because it's not on a human, a necropsy on a vampire victim.
Right.
And I had a little pocket knife, which I always carried around with me.
Mm.
And I used that and the plastic covers of some video cassette, the little 8mm video cassettes I was using, and I cut the chicken open. It was completely drained of blood. This is the weird bit. It was
Right.
completely drained of blood. The liver was completely missing.
Right.
But the diaphragm, that's the big membrane that goes between the body cavity and the chest cavity, was unbroken.
Right.
And the only puncture marks were in the neck.
Oh wow, that's interesting. It's I suppose that it's that you got the Buffy vampire slayer and vampires, like people would think that's you just don't know. I suppose there's a close similarity between, as well as was talking about satanic rituals there. I suppose people see mutilations and anything aliens as well there. I suppose it all comes back to species, and we just don't know what's out there. We have the quiz. So this is it there, Irene. You have a choice of 6 places to choose from. We have the bedroom, the windmill, the road, the school, the flying saucer, and the battleground. If you can type in one of those 6 places, you know yourself there, one of those 6 places, you have a chance to go into our Halloween mega draw and mini draw there. Jonathan, which one of those places would you pick?
The flying saucer.
Flying saucer. That has to fit in there because we're going to be talking about the Devonshire Triangle now shortly there. So Irene's gone for the windmill. Perfect there. So in the next few minutes there, we'll be coming over and we'll be revealing if you're in the Halloween draw or mega draw. So if you'd like to contact us, go to the website www.ghostére.net. Fill in the blanks. If you have a private message, just put in brackets private message. So can you tell us more? What is the Devonshire Triangle there, John? Completely different subject. UFOs.
It was.
So
it was a area in South Devon where, on a number of occasions, almost exactly 10 years apart,
right.
there was a whole string of sightings, all sorts of weird things. There were big cats, ghosts, UFOs, weird lights coming out of the sea, animal mutilations, and I happened to be stuck right in the middle of it in 1997. And when my co-author, Nigel Wright, who's somebody you really ought to have on the show, you'd enjoy him, he's good fun. And Nigel Wright and I worked out that it had been 10 years since the last set of sightings in the late 80s in 1987, and 10 years before that, in 1977, there'd been these sightings. And so I assumed, and I should never really assume anything, I assumed, this is all going to happen again in 2007. And you know what? Nothing did. Absolutely nothing happened in 2007 or 2017. It's almost like when Nigel and I investigated all this stuff and wrote it down for the first time,
it went away.
It's almost like it was saying, right, I've had enough of this, I'm going somewhere else. Because
every 11 years.
Yes, I've noticed that on so many occasions that there are places where at a certain time all sorts of weird stuff can happen. And then you go back on another time and it's perfectly normal.
Yeah. It's like, I suppose it's like I suppose it's all these different dimensions or times and realms there. You know, as you said, did population? Do you say it goes down after? Does it go up, or is it that these places be populated? And if there's a population goes down, that there's more occurrences. Is that correct? Or
no, I don't know about that.
No, right?
But no, I think. Again, I think the stuff's perfectly natural. It's not supernatural, it's not paranormal, it's natural, it's normal. But by Jesus, we don't understand it. We don't understand what causes it. We don't understand the laws of physics which define it. And I've spent the last 35 years of my life doing my best to find out exactly that, trying to study things which are almost by their nature unstudyable. And I suspect I shall do it for however much time I have left on this planet. And then it'll be time for the next generation to take over.
And I suppose, like as we were saying there, with like in Ireland now, there's opposed to the UFOs, there's like been sightings is actually the highest in Europe is in Ireland there, and I suppose UK is kind of similar there as well. There, did you wrote the book of the Rising of the Moon and the Owlman and the others, and the Island of Paradise. That's to do with Chupacabra there. I'm just gonna. Is there any places where people can buy your books there, John?
Yeah, if you check out our website, which is cfz.org.uk, we've got a swish new website that's only been up for a fortnight, and there's a bookstore on there. Otherwise, just look for me on Amazon. And
as well, there I'm going to show a video there as well of Jonathan, YouTube as well. Jonathan has a channel, the CFZ channel, the Centre for Fortean Zoology there. I'm just going to show that now in a second there. Mary says, during COVID, people have had time to observe things. There have been a high number of UFO recordings in Ireland. Yeah, that's true there, because it was on the news recently there that it seems to be very high in Ireland. Now, I don't know if it's going to be high this bank holiday weekend as well. I suppose with the weather as well, it'll be more clear. We might see more stuff as well there.
Well, I think, Mary, you're completely right, but it's not just UFOs, because I've noticed this over the last year when people have not been able to go about their normal activities, and their only exercise is going out for a walk once a day. People are reporting more rare butterflies. People are reporting more birds that they've never seen before, because people, because of COVID, are being forced to keep their eyes open and look around them. And I think with that, COVID's a blessing in disguise, because in our increasingly urbanized technological society, we don't look up at the skies above. We don't look to see what that little orange thing fluttering about in the local hedges. We don't look and see what those weird lights under the sea are. And I think COVID's almost done us all a favour.
Yeah, we've become more nosy, you mean, Jonathan?
Well, we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be Homo sapiens. We're not supposed to be Homo sits on his ass watching television all day yet.
That's the Olympics. So it's 24 hours only. Just messing there. Like, yeah, it's a good point there, Mary, and John there as well. So what we'll do is now is the quiz there, folks. So Jonathan, you picked the flying saucer, and Irene, you picked the windmill. It was the windmill there. So here we go. We're going to see how we are. See if you're going to go in the Halloween mega draw or mini draw. So there's a choice between the bedroom, windmill, road, school, flying saucer, and battleground. And no look there, Jonathan. Oh, no, flying saucer, no look. And the mini draw is the road, and Eileen, look this time. The windmill is successful. You're in the Halloween mega draw there, Eileen. Well done there. You are in the draw.
I didn't understand any of that.
No, nobody understands anything, really. that's life, isn't it, really?
Pretty much.
Right. What I'm going to do there, just going to show a video from the intro video to Jonathan's and the CF Said's YouTube channel, and this is very interesting and this is cool to watch as well there. So this is a video of the CF Said.
My name's John Downs. I'm a singer, I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm a poet, I'm a grandfather, and I'm director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which, for my sins, I started nearly 30 years ago. And in those 30 years I've spent much of my time travelling around the world, investigating rare, mysterious and semi-folkloric animals. As you can see, these days I'm pretty well housebound. I'm in a wheelchair for a lot of my time. But I can still study these things because although I can't walk anymore, I can use computers and I can use a camera, which is why, as the Centre for Fortean Zoology continues to do all sorts of extraordinary things, this show comes out every week, at the moment on Saturday afternoons at 3 o'clock, in order to delight, amuse and sometimes confuse you all. But as well as being a mixture of hard science, what is vulgarly known as weird shit, and a little bit of tomfoolery, it's also got quite a lot of homemade surrealism, because I'm a great believer in what Timothy Leary and Robert Anton Wilson called reality tunnels. The idea that all of us have a different perception of reality, and sometimes things that really conflict with our idea of reality come bumbling into our view. This show does feature quite a lot of half-assed surrealism, with talking animals, people with glove puppets, and of course Wally, the comedy rhinoceros. And so if this does sound like the sort of show you'd like to watch, even if it's only to say hello to the cats like Dotty Periwinkle, who is sitting on the fish tank behind me, we're broadcasting on YouTube on the CFZ TV channel every Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Be there, be eternally unhip, and if you are there, I'll be seeing you.
Yeah, so that's Jonathan Downs there, and that's the CF Said, the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and that's YouTube. Subscribe to it there, and also John, we also have the website as well there, and is it CF Said? I'm just going to put it up here. So I know, whoopsie daisy there. That's technology for you there. So, can you tell us what you've got down in the pipeline? Is the shows on every week? Is it with the on the CF Said YouTube channel?
Yeah, I do a show each week called On the Track, which is me plus. It's very similar to this. It's basically me and various friends of mine from around the world talking weird. And this time, for example, we've got an interview. This is a show that went out this afternoon. We got an interview with my old friend Ken Gerard from San Antonio, who has been doing an expedition into the mountains of California looking for giant salamanders,
Mm.
which are the Trinity Mountains in California, where there have been reports of giant salamanders anything up to 8 feet long for several hundred years. And the biggest salamander in North America is only about 2 feet long. But there are salamanders in Japan and China which are much, much bigger. So
Right.
could there be a relative of them living in the Trinity Mountains? Ken Gerard believes so, and I think he's talking quite a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
if this stuff interests you, come and watch it.
yeah, because there's a recent, was it a recent, you were talking about the Cheshire wildcats. There's like wildcats being seen around Cheshire. Seen that? Discoveries of prints there.
Yeah, those you can see on the CFZ blog. There's been all sorts of sightings in Cheshire at the moment.
Good, good.
Again, big cat sightings are a bit like UFO sightings. They seem to happen in waves. And at the moment, the hotspot seems to be Cheshire.
That's where I used to be.
Whereas couple of years, well, a year or so ago, the hotspot was Gloucestershire.
Right.
But we have a ongoing investigation in the Forest of Dean into sightings of lynx-like creatures which have been seen there. So
Right.
again, this is all stuff which you can find on the website, and it's in the show.
So there's the website. We have it up. It's www.cfz.org.uk, and it's a beautiful website there. It's amazing, actually. It's better than some of the websites that I've seen out there, John. It's amazing.
It's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, I couldn't have coded that. For the last 20 years, we've had one that I coded, but that one was done by a young man called Louis, who has only just recently joined the CFZ, and he's done an absolutely fantastic job. I think I can truthfully say, without boasting too much, I think it's probably the best looking mystery animal website in the world. Wonderful website.
Go ahead, John. Then boast away.
Oh, of course I'll boast. Hey, it's a Saturday night. I'm sober. I'm allowed to boast.
Irene says, "Wow, awesome." I think that's to do with being in the Halloween mega draw. She's on about the salamander, which is interesting as well. John, it's been a real pleasure to have you there on the show, and really appreciate a load of knowledge there, and it's been great to have you there.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed being on.
And thank you for everyone who commented there. On our next show, we have Shawnee Power from Slaney Paranormal Investigators, and we'll be talking about the Athenaeum Theatre, Intuition, and Enniscorthy Castle. So that'll be coming up on the next show there. Jonathan, really thank you there, and thank you all there. And I won't see you next time. I'll see you in the near distance. Goodbye for now, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.